All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. And right as I am in the midst of talking about the upcoming college football season, what a better time than to talk right now about the Southeastern Conference. Now, of course, the SEC is a 16-team league. We saw it basically be a war of attrition last year, and you can expect more of the same this time around. Now, last year, the SEC got three teams into the college football playoff. There are some people who felt that they deserve more. This year we've heard, the talks about the Big Ten and the SEC looking to expand the college football playoff as well as guaranteeing four bids for each of their respective leagues. I'm not here for that. I feel like the bids should be earned and not given. Nonetheless, I think that we are in store for another phenomenal season of college football in the Southeastern Conference. So let's talk about the teams in the SEC and let's talk about their chances this year, shall we? So you look at LSU, okay, and the expectations are always high in Baton Rouge for this team. All right. Last year, LSU, they went 9-4. They were 5-3 within the SEC. Of course, for some programs, that's fine and dandy, but not at Louisiana State, as they want to see their team contending for the SEC title and contending for a college football playoff spot each and every year. For the Bayou Bengals, they're coming off of their second four-loss season in the last 3 years under head coach Brian Kelly. And you just got to wonder if this is going to be a year where LSU can put it all together. They've got themselves a senior quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, who I do believe is going to be one of the better signal callers in the SEC this year. I've talked about junior wide receiver Aaron Anderson. There's plenty of talent there. There's talent on this defense, which includes the likes of Whit Weeks and Howard Perkins, if he's able to stay healthy. LSU has a very interesting schedule. I talked about this last night in my top 25. They start off at Clemson, not going to be an easy place. You look at some of their conference games. They're home for Florida. They've got Ole Miss. They're home for South Carolina and Texas A&M in the month of October. And then I'm looking at the month of November. They're at Alabama on November 8th. And I think that game right there is going to go a very long way in determining who gets to the SEC championship game. And then, of course, LSU finishes up in Norman against Oklahoma. Now, year one for Texas in the SEC saw them get to the SEC championship game. They had their fair share of opportunities to win that contest, didn't do so. They still found a way to the college football playoff. Nonetheless, this time around, it's all about the Arch Manning era at quarterback for the Longhorns. And of course, the question is this young man with the famous last name going to be able to live up to the hype? He saw limited action last year behind quarterback Quinn Ewers. Of course, now another year of seasoning under head coach Steve Sarkisian in Austin. But for me, the big thing with Texas is the Arch Manning hype aside, their run game with Quay Weisner and CJ Baxter. That's going to be important for Texas. And then this defense, which is third in the nation last year, you've got Anthony Hill Jr. at middle linebacker. You've also got an outstanding defensive end in Colin Simmons. And then, of course, I've talked about him before, and I'll say it again right now. Strong safety, Michael Taft. And he's in that category for me as far as being a football player's football player. Okay. I think Texas is going to once again be in the mix to win the SEC. They're going to have to earn it. And of course, when you think about Texas, a lot of people are talking about that big showdown to begin the season in Columbus against Ohio State. But I'm looking at the month of November for the Longhorns, and that's going to go a long way in determining whether or not they get back to Atlanta. They're at Georgia on the 15th of November, a team to beat Texas twice last year, which included going to Austin and dominating them, and of course, finishing up at home against A&M. Speaking of A&M, okay, I've talked about the belief in Mike Elko, and I think finally everybody in College Station is on the same page. He's got the Aggie fans believing, and I think this is a blue collar team that I think could really be dangerous in the SEC. You've got Tennessee; they're on the right ship under head coach Josh Heupel, but again, that whole Nico Iamaleava controversy, I think, set them back a little bit. But at the same time, not to sound hypocritical here, I think the guys that stayed in Knoxville, I think it brought them together a little bit more. And Josh Heupel said during that whole saga that you know what, nobody's bigger than the block T at the University of Tennessee, including him. And I think his players are going to buy it. And I think Tennessee is once again going to be among the upper echelon teams in the Southeastern Conference. Georgia and Kirby Smart, they're looking to make it to Atlanta for the fifth consecutive year. And of course, Atlanta is a hop, skip, and a jump from Georgia's campus in Athens. But nonetheless, the Dogs have made getting to Atlanta basically, second nature as it's their home away from home at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Of course, we know Georgia no longer has Carson Beck at quarterback. He transferred to the University of Miami. You've got Gunnar Stockton, and I think this year, in my opinion, Georgia's going to play it a little bit closer to the chest on offense. They're going to try to out physical you, do their thing with their run game, and rely on their defense. And there's one thing that you know for sure with Kirby Smart at the controls of this Georgia program, they are going to be very physical. Georgia travels to Knoxville on the 13th of September to take on Tennessee. Big game. To end that month, they get Alabama at home. And if anybody remembers, that game last year in Tuscaloosa between Georgia and Alabama was a thriller. Of course, taking on Florida in Jacksonville to begin the month of November. Like I said before, Texas comes to Georgia on the 15th of November. And then a game that I think people need to start paying attention to again, and that is the clean old fashioned hate. I'm talking about the showdown between Georgia and Georgia Tech. And of course, Georgia Tech went to Athens last year and gave the Bulldogs all that they could handle before they lost. I think it was like 7 or 8 overtimes, whatever it was. But nonetheless, Georgia's going to have to buckle up their chin straps in that contest as well. Alabama. Okay, and I got some Alabama fans out there who were not happy where I had them ranked in my top 25. I totally understand it. Okay. But nonetheless, let's talk about this Crimson Tide team. Year number 2 for Kalen DeBoer. And I think the transition from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer in year number 1 has been good. Of course, Kalen DeBoer is not Nick Saban. And I give Kalen DeBoer all of the credit in the world because it is not easy regardless of the sport, to walk in the door and follow a legend. We knew that somebody eventually was going to have to replace Nick Saban at Alabama. Honestly, in my opinion, one of, if not the toughest jobs in college football right now. Kalen DeBoer has been known for what he can get done on offense. Let's see if this offense takes more of his shape for 2025 as opposed to last year. Ryan Williams, like I said before, this young man is the real deal at wide receiver. I don't think he has a sophomore jinx. This Alabama defense led by Deontay Lawson, what are they going to do? And make no mistake about it. I think Alabama is going to be in the mix to win the SEC. I think Alabama, of course, is going to be in the mix to get to the college football playoff. But with that said, Alabama is really going to have to earn it. They begin this season in Tallahassee against Florida State, a Florida State team out of the ACC that is looking to put the disastrous 2024 season behind them. Like I said before, Alabama travels to Athens on the 27th of September to take on Georgia. They host Vanderbilt on October 4th, and that's a game that people got to circle because remember, Alabama was a big favorite when they went to Nashville last year to take on the Commodores. And of course, we know what happened from there. Alabama gets Tennessee on the 18th of October, third Saturday in October. That tradition at least continues. They follow that up by going to South Carolina. And if anybody remembers Shane Beamer's team last year, they went to Tuscaloosa and gave Alabama all that they can handle. Of course, November 8th, We'll see LSU travel to Bryant Denny. Alabama will also host Oklahoma, a team that upset them late last season. And then, of course, finishing up with the Iron Bowl at Jordan Hare. You look at Florida, okay, and I had them ranked in my top 25. A lot of people are drinking the Kool-Aid for Florida, and I just want to see if the Gators are able to turn that corner. I mean, they finished strong last year in the SEC. And I think, of course, their head coach, Billy Napier, getting that vote of confidence was big for them. Florida has been working on their facilities, they've been working on their recruiting. They've have a young team, they're getting the guys there. Now, they've got to be able to put it together on Saturdays in arguably the toughest conference in college football. Make no mistake about it. I think DJ Lagway at quarterback has star potential for Florida. Of course, it wasn't that long ago. He was in a walking boot, but the season's a couple of weeks away, and I think he will be ready to go. I look at this Florida defense. How are they going to be able to get after people in the SEC? And I just talked about Alabama's schedule. Florida might have the toughest schedule in college football altogether. I mean, at LSU on the 13th of September, at Miami on the 20th of September. They're home for Texas on the 4th of October, which is then followed by a trip to College Station to take on Texas A&M. They get Georgia and Jacksonville. They're at Ole Miss on the 15th of November. They're home for Tennessee on the 22nd of November, and they're home for Florida State to finish out the regular season. Good luck to the Gators. That's all I'm gonna say. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. No Jackson Dart this year at quarterback. Of course, he's now in the NFL with the New York Giants. But nonetheless, I think Ole Miss is a team that could fly under the radar. But the bottom line is Lane Kiffin knows how to coach, and Lane Kiffin is going to have his team ready each and every Saturday. And when it's all said and done, I think Ole Miss is still going to be a very formidable team in the SEC. You can put South Carolina and Shane Beamer in that category of teams that nobody wants to play. And typically, when it comes to sports, teams tend to embody the spirit and the mindset of their head coach. And you look at Beamer, excuse me, he coaches with a lot of enthusiasm. He has his guys ready to play, and his guys are ready to run through a wall for him. And South Carolina is, I think, they want to go from being a tough out last year and being a team that nobody wanted to face to being a team that, we're ready to take that next step in the SEC. It's easier said than done just due to the fact that the SEC is so difficult. But I really like this South Carolina team with quarterback Lenora Sellers. I like this South Carolina defense. They know how to get after you. They've got good athletes on that side of the ball. You look at defensive end Dylan Stewart. You look at Jalen Kilgore and company in that secondary. And the Gamecocks are going to be very formidable in this conference. I talked about it last night. They get Virginia Tech in Atlanta on the 31st of this month. And of course, that is a homecoming for Shane Beamer because when you think about Beamer ball and you think about Virginia Tech, you think about his dad, Frank Beamer, who built that program there. Going to LSU on the 11th of October, and that was a great game last year between LSU and South Carolina when the Tigers went to Columbia. They've got Alabama at home on the 25th, which is followed by going to Oxford to take on Ole Miss on the 1st of November, and then they travel to travel to College Station on the 15th of November to take on A&M, and then of course they finish up at home against Clemson, a Clemson team that did make the playoff last year, so that could be a game that decides a playoff spot potentially for these two in-state rivals. You look at Oklahoma, and I think it's hard to believe, but Oklahoma really got caught up in the wash last year in the SEC. You think about Oklahoma, you think about a team that's consistently, contending for conference championships. Granted, they found out the hard way, the Big 12 is not the SEC. And of course, Brent Venables had his fair share of injuries to his program last year. He lost Jackson Arnold, his quarterback, in the transfer portal to Auburn. Nonetheless, Oklahoma went out and got former Washington State quarterback John Mateer. They also got former Cal running back Caden Ott. Oklahoma had a lot of injuries at wide receiver last year. They've got to try to stay healthy. They've got to try to find some semblance of order on offense. Defensively, I think the Sooners under Brent Venables will be okay with defensive end R. Mason Thomas and Kip Lewis at outside linebacker leading the way. But can Oklahoma find a way to keep up with the Joneses? Because again, when you think about Oklahoma, you think about a blue blood in college football, and them hovering around 500 is not something that they want to do. For Oklahoma, they've got themselves a tough road to hoe this year once again in the SEC. They've got Texas and Dallas in October. The week after that, they're in Columbia to take on South Carolina, which is followed by hosting Ole Miss, which is then followed by going to Knoxville to take on Tennessee, all in 4 consecutive Saturdays. Then on the 15th of November, we're talking about Oklahoma going to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama, and then they finish up at home against LSU. Good luck to the Sooners. That's all I'm going to say. For Auburn and Hugh Freeze, okay, we know that Hugh Freeze once upon a time had some success at Ole Miss, revitalized his career at Liberty. He's back in the SEC at Auburn, and it hasn't gone according to plan so far for him. And when it comes to Saturdays in the Southeastern Conference, there's the coaches that win, and of course, they keep their jobs, and the ones who don't get fired. And we're talking about Hugh Freeze at this point. He's 11-14 so far at Auburn, and he's 5-11 in the SEC. And at the end of the day, Auburn has not finished with a winning record since 2020. Hard to believe. I truly do think that the pressure is going to be on Hugh Freeze and his Tigers this year. Will they be able to live with it? Like I talked about, Jackson Arnold left Oklahoma. He's now at Auburn. So let's see what he can do for War Eagle. Keep an eye out for this offensive line. They've got a lot of experience. I like what Auburn is doing defensively as they're looking to try to improve. But again, it's going to be an uphill battle in this league, especially when you're talking about you're hosting Georgia on the 11th of October. You finish up at home with Alabama. You've got to go to A&M this year. You've got to go to Oklahoma. And then for kicks, you start the season on the road uh, against Baylor out of the Big 12. There's Arkansas and Sam Pittman. Of course, they hovered around 500 last year. What are they going to do this year with Taylor Green at quarterback? We got to wait and see. Missouri has become a very interesting program under head coach Eli Drinkwitz. They won a combined 21 games over the last 2 years, which includes 11 victories in the SEC. No more Brady Cook at quarterback. Is it going to be Bo Prabula, the Penn State transfer, taking the snaps this year for Missouri on offense? Missouri is one of those teams that they fly under the radar, but at the end of the day, they just go out there and win. And it doesn't matter if it's now in the SEC or before in the Big 12, or of course, you think about Missouri's last great run with Gary Pinkel. Nonetheless, the Tigers are still going to be a fun team, in my opinion, on Saturdays this fall. And speaking of fun teams, Vanderbilt came out of nowhere, and they've once again become a thorn in the side of a lot of people in the SEC. They won 7 games last year. They're not going to be able to sneak up on anybody this year, okay? But you want to see what Vandy's going to be able to do for an encore, especially with Diego Pavea at quarterback. Very exciting young man. He plays with a lot of spunk, and I think that his teammates, tend to feed off of that. Got an experienced offensive line for the Commodores. You got a very interesting defense with the likes of Nick Rinaldi and company. And I want to just see if Vandy's going to go out there and take care of their business and try to get back to a bowl game. Speaking about turning things around, you look at Kentucky. They went 4-8 last year for head coach Mark Stoops. Big reason for that, they were 114th in the nation in offense, and they failed to reach 20 points in 7 of their contests. Mark Stoops can coach defense in his sleep, but is Kentucky going to be able to score enough points this year? That will we have to wait and see. And finally, there's Mississippi State. And of course, 2024 was a year to forget for the Bulldogs as they did not win a conference game. They lost 6 games last year by at least 17 points, which includes losing at home to Toledo out of the MAC by 24. The bottom line is Mississippi State has to find a way to become more competitive this year in one of the toughest conferences in college football. They bring in former Baylor quarterback Blake Shapen. They've got some experience on the O line. They've got some experience on defense as well. But I think Mississippi State is still going to be fighting an uphill battle in this league. When it's all said and done, some people are going to ask, well, who are the contenders going to be? Well, for some people, it's going to be the usual suspects. I look at LSU. I think that the Tigers are going to be in the mix to win the SEC. I look at Texas. I like their chances. I think A&M is going to be in that mix. I also like Georgia, and I also like Alabama to flirt with getting to Atlanta and winning the SEC championship. But when it's all said and done, I think Texas gets to Atlanta for the second consecutive year. I think their opponent is different this time around. I think this time it's going to be LSU who gets to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. It's one of those for me. I know that the pressure is going to be on Brian Kelly this year. And if you follow his track record, whether it's been at LSU and especially at Notre Dame, he typically tends to follow up a disappointing year with a bigger year. And I think this is a time where his Tigers, who took their lumps last year, I think they rebound, and I think they have what it takes to win the Southeastern Conference this year. Like I said, Texas is going to be in that mix. I think they will be in the mix as well to possibly get back to the college football playoff. I think Georgia is also going to be in that conversation, as will Alabama, as will South Carolina. Last year, the Southeastern Conference got 3 bids. Like I said before, some people felt that they should have gotten 4. Will the SEC get 4 bids for the college football playoff this year? We've got to wait and see. But nonetheless, I think we are once again in store for a tremendous season in this 16-team league. The thing about the SEC, a lot of good teams there. And of course, when you have a lot of good teams, they tend to beat up on each other. So, will we see a 3-loss SEC team? And when I say 3 loss, I mean 3 conference losses. Okay, we got to wait and see. But nonetheless, I truly do think that the Southeastern Conference is once again going to be a war of attrition. A lot of great talent here, a lot of great NFL talent because year in and year out, the SEC typically tends to produce the most of the NFL talent that from the collegiate landscape. But nonetheless, Ryan, what's going on, man? Long time no hear from you. Yeah, listen, I talked about your Gators, and I'm going to say it once again. I think uh, the thing that could do in Florida, and I still think they're going to be a good team. But the thing that could do in Florida is that schedule. They did not get any favors from their schedule. But I'll tell you like this: if Florida finds a way to come out of that slate that they have to deal with, 6-2 or better, and within the SEC, I will definitely tip my hat to Billy Napier as far as what he would be able to do with that program. I think Florida finishes with a winning record. I think Florida is going to be a team that stays in the top 25 this year. But again, it is truly going to be a war of attrition for this league. And again, that's what makes the Southeastern Conference must see television each and every Saturday. That's why you got the big networks fighting over their coverage. And honestly, like I said before, that's why you see a lot of guys from this conference go on to the National Football League. But like I said before, the SEC is going to be once again packed with intensity each and every Saturday. I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to go, man. College football season cannot get here quick enough. You're saying same as last year, went 8-5, could have beat Tennessee and Georgia with hurt quarterbacks, going to be tough regardless. I'll tell you like this: that Georgia game last year with Florida, if they had found a way to win that game, or if they had found a way to win that Tennessee game, I think that would have really sped up the growth process for Billy Napier's club. To his credit, they didn't pack it in after those tough losses to begin of the year last year. Remember, they got dominated at home against Miami, and then the wheels fell off against Texas A&M. And they hunkered down and they worked their butts off. Okay, and I think they started to turn the corner at the end of the year by beating LSU at home, and then of course beating Ole Miss. And it was funny because the roles had reversed because a lot of people heading into last season expected it to be Florida State that would have their way with Florida at the end of the season. And of course, it was the other way around, as it was a year to forget for the Seminoles. And again, that's why you got to lace them up, and that's why you got to play each and every Saturday. But I think going through that makes you mentally tougher. And I'm really interested to see what Florida does this year. But like I said, that's a tough schedule. I mean, they got Texas at home. I think they go to A&M. They of course they got Georgia as well. So the Gators, they're going to definitely have to earn it each and every Saturday. But like I said, I am truly looking forward to this college football season. I don't know about y'all, but the end of August cannot get here quick enough for me. But folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out this 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And if you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, you know what to do. Hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Like I always say, it is greatly appreciated. Also, for you college football buffs, I am not done talking about the upcoming college football season as I'm scratching the surface. So definitely be sure to check out this channel tomorrow as I will be talking about the upcoming college football season from the aspect of the Big Ten. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And if you gave me that follow, I'll give you that follow right back. Den GS, or JS, excuse me. Definitely appreciate your support. Definitely appreciate you checking me out. Ryan, you're saying 9-3 will make the playoffs, and I'll be checking you out. Definitely, I appreciate that. Listen, a 9-win team from the SEC is definitely going to be in the conversation. I think 10 wins and 6 conference wins definitely get you in. Okay, that's just my thought process. I truly do feel that the SEC and the Big Ten will be the toughest leagues this year in college football. I personally would like to see the SEC go to 9 conference games. I'll tell you like this. I know we're hearing rumors about a handshake agreement with North Carolina and the SEC. I think if the SEC were to go to 18, I think they would at that point have to go to 9 games, conference games at least. But nonetheless, 9 wins in the SEC, I think definitely has you in the mix. 10 wins, I think all but guarantees you a spot in the college football playoff. That's why I really, really want to see how things play out this year, and I really want to see how the committee looks at the SEC, excuse me, as a whole. But also, if you're on Instagram, you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge, just like it is for Twitter. Give me that follow, I'll give you that follow right back. Also, you can check me out on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. As far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating groups going on social media. Like I said before, and I'm not trying to sound like a broken record, so please forgive me if I am. College football season cannot get here quick enough. And I don't know about y'all. I already have it circled on my calendar as far as Texas going to Ohio State. The defending national champs, of course, not the same squad. The Arch Manning hype, you name it. We've got Alabama, Florida State. I enjoy the college football season from start to finish. But I really enjoy the beginning, that like those first couple of weeks when you see those out of conference games and you're seeing the big schools from different leagues playing each other. We've also got LSU and Clemson, and all of these games, have college football playoff implications. And also with this expanded college football playoff, we also have the possibility of a rematch, between some of these teams coming down the bend as well. So I talked about it last year. We saw Texas, Georgia twice. We also saw Ohio State, Oregon twice. I think we could possibly see, it wouldn't surprise me to see some of these teams meet 3 times this year: regular season, conference championship game, as well as in the college football playoff. And I think the SEC is once again going to be deep. Of course, that they're going to send multiple bids from this league, but I just want to see who's it going to be. But like I said, I'm going with LSU to win the Southeastern Conference. Listen, drop it in the comment box. I want to know who you have winning the SEC. I definitely want to hear from you. Get some feedback as far as who you feel has what it takes to win this league, and also get to the college football playoff. Ryan, I am definitely going to hold you to that 9-3 mark for the Florida Gators, and I want you to hold me to picking LSU to win this league. So we got to stay in tune with that one. But until Ryan, you're going with Texas? Okay, okay. Well, I got Texas making the SEC championship game again this year, but I think the difference possibly is going to be the experience of quarterback with Garrett Nussmeier as opposed to Arch Manning. The hype is definitely going to be there behind Arch Manning. I truly do think so. I think though, with his last name and the fact that his grandfather had a successful career, his uncles Peyton and Eli had successful careers. I don't think he's going to be afraid of the spotlight. I don't think he's going to be afraid of the big time. I don't think he's going to be a kid that's going to wilt under pressure. Nonetheless, I'm still, with all of that said, I'm rolling with LSU to win this league, an exciting league this year. I truly do think is going to be that Southeastern Conference. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off and I'm saying thanks once again for checking me out here on the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast on YouTube. Be well, everybody. And like I said before, college football season, the start of it, can't get here quick enough. Be well, everybody.